I'm not really sure how people do this blogging thing. Like, I'm trying to get more into a lot more of storytelling because, everyone wants to grow and I want to be able to take you guys more into my personal life and all that. Hence why this style of video has to be more. I want to show like, the multiple angles and all that. But for some reason, I think this would be a lot more difficult than I thought it would be. My hands are already hurting from holding this camera. Anyways, it's YouTube Friday, and today I have something else to share with you guys. But first, let's get somewhere to sit down. Alright, so we're all set and I'm well seated. Now we can talk. If this is your first time watching my video on this channel, my name is Festus Obi. I make videos and answer popular tech related questions, especially for people who are still thinking of getting into tech or still beginners and trying to figure it out. So the topic for today is how often should you change jobs? Now this is one of those topics that people make it look like there is a hard way to do it that is already written and stamped on a book. When you check out there all over the internet, it's almost as though like the common consensus, people think you have to work for a company at least 2 years before you move on. And I personally think that is wrong for so many reasons. And the reason why I think that is wrong takes us to the next. But before going forward, I think it's only right for me to actually rephrase this question. That way it's easier for me to communicate my message for today. And rephrasing this question, we would have to flip it to something like, how long should you actually stay on a particular job? Now, to answer this question, I have to tear this into 3 categories. Now, the first one is as a beginner, the second as an experienced professional, and the third is obviously people who are over experienced and pretty much have decades of experience in IT. Now, how long should you actually stay on the job? Simply put, the answer is for as long as it takes for you to achieve the reason or achieve the purpose for you actually getting on to that job, except you actually took the job for the sake of money, which even if it is money, it gets to a point where the money is no longer enough and you have to look for something else, right? Yeah, personally, I think that is what it is. But moving forward, like I said again, the first category we'll look at is the beginners. Now, let's say, for example, you're starting out as a front-end developer. In this case, obviously, it makes more sense to start as a junior front-end developer, especially if you did not have any commercial experience before getting the job. And you get hired as a junior developer, your salary is not really, that good. You might have had 6 to 1 year experience outside the job during your learning phase that you've pretty much built a lot of projects. Arguably, you're not good enough because you don't have commercial experience. Now, commercial experience is something you can really pick up within 6 to 8 months before proceeding to maybe a mid-level software developer if you're really that good. And now on the job, you get to learn stuff like, the best design patterns, testing frameworks, and general skills you actually learn collaborating with people, a team of 10 or more people. Now, when you've gotten to that 6 to 8 months, obviously, there is no way you've not gotten the commercial experience that warrants you to get up to a mid-level developer and hence, increasing your salary along the line. The problem with this is in most cases, people in this position find themselves in small software houses or agencies that might not actually be willing to push them up, or they join a big corporation that has a policy of you staying on a particular job for say a year and a half or 2 before you can move, which is really the reason why a lot of people make it look like it's hard-coded that you have to stay on the job for 2 years, which to me obviously doesn't make any sense. Now, your best bet of getting what you want, which is getting up to that position of being a mid-level software developer or front-end engineer or whatever, is to step outside the company. Now, 8 months of commercial experience qualifies you to actually go from junior developer to mid-level developer. The only thing is you have a lot to prove. But when it comes to the 8 months itself as a factor, I don't really think it stops or limits the opportunities you would have, because again, this is your first job. The second people will have to talk about are experienced professionals. So now these are people who have 2 years and above of experience. Now, while it makes sense to stay for a company for as long as you can, because again, that's really how you get to know the ins and outs and get to grow. If that is like, a proper company that have, support for certifications, internal trainings and all that. There are also other factors at play here, and one of them happens to be, in my case, I think it's something I wouldn't really do anymore. So a lot of countries, really, I'm not sure how it is in the States, but in Europe, I mean, as far as I know, every country has something they call notice period. And that is like the longer you stay in a company, the longer the notice period. Notice period is really like you informing your employer that you have to leave beforehand. When you get hired, automatically it is 2 weeks, which means if you get another opportunity or something happens, you have to relocate or something like that, you have 2 weeks to do that. And if you inform your employer, you work for that 2 weeks, then you can bounce. If you go like, I think 1 year and above, it bumps up to a month. And then when you stay above 3, it bumps up to 3 months. The problem with this is, as much as you're qualified, it limits the chances of the jobs and opportunities you can get, because it's not everyone that wants to hire you and wait for 3 months before you can join. That doesn't make any sense, especially if there is a project that is really, really in the need of someone. So if you're an experienced professional, while 2 years, 3 years might make sense, you have to bear in mind also that this might be an issue. But then again, like I said, the purpose for you joining that particular company, pretty much defeats whatever timeline people make it seem like you have to keep to. Now, the over experienced people. Now, really, the reason why I say over experienced is because I've met a lot of people that have several years of experience, more than 10, 15 and above, that really want to work these days on their own terms. Them actually working is more like having fun and just, they're still fascinated with IT. They feel like they still need to be hands-on. So people like this, the guy I know at least, he doesn't take long-term contracts like, for a year or two or stuff like that. He doesn't do that. What he does is he works project-based. So he gets hired for a particular project. It could be like a project that is starting from scratch, or still maybe a migration to the cloud, stuff like that really, that's, spans from 6 months to a year. He signs a contract for that. When that is done, he bounces to the next thing that interests him. Now, I don't think someone like this, you can actually tell someone like this that, oh, you have to stay 2 years in the job, else you're hurting your career. Because at the end of the day, the career is built around them completing the project. So when he completes the project and, he's talking to a recruiter who is most likely looking for someone for another project, the reason for leaving the previous one is, I ended the project. It was supposed to be for 1 year or 6 months or whatever, and it's done. I'm looking for something else. So I want to summarize this video by saying that the most important thing when it comes to actually staying on a job or quitting after some time should be you achieving the purpose as to why you got onto that job. Of course, things might go wrong along the line. 4 months into the job, 5 months, you decide to drop out. That's well understandable. But simply leaving and moving on because, it is acceptable or it is normal or it's a rule to leave after 2 years doesn't make any sense, especially if there is still potential and if there is still so much you can achieve with that particular company. So that's where we end it for today. I hope I was able to explain this in a way that makes sense. And if you have any contributions or questions, obviously feel free to put it down in the comment section. Thank you for watching. See you next time.